Apple already nailed the AirPod Pros by the second generation. Great noise canceling, check. Great battery life, check. Adding features over time through software like hearing aid functionality and translation tools, check. USB-C, I mean, they eventually got there, but check. Up to this point, whenever somebody would ask me what kind of earbuds they should get, especially if they were looking for noise canceling headphones, I would always recommend the AirPod Pros 2s. Didn't matter if you were running on an iPhone or an Android phone, or if you just wanted something for your Steam Deck like what I've done, these worked on everything and they were a great set of headphones. Apple nailed it. And so when Apple announced the AirPod Pros 3s, I figured this was probably going to be the same thing as what Apple's been doing with their watches for a little while now, which is kind of just polishing perfection since they already nailed it so early on. And I was kind of right, but you know, sometimes it never hurts to give something just a little bit more shine. Now, right off the bat, I was pretty frustrated during my unboxing video when I found out that Apple didn't include a USB-C cable with their $250 headphones. And yes, these are still $250. But a lot of people pointed out that, well, it's very likely that a lot of people already have USB-C cables, and I will grant you that. But my reason for being frustrated, aside from the fact that I feel like $250 headphones can afford to include a 5-cent USB cable, is because Apple on the mobile side, specifically with their iPhones and their headphones, have only been using USB-C now since the iPhone 15 and the late iteration of the AirPod Pros 2s. And so I know quite a few people who still have Lightning-based AirPods, myself included, and also still use a Lightning-based iPhone like the 14 or newer. And the only USB-C device they're using is a single USB, let's say thumb drive or flash drive connected to their computer. And yeah, they get some cheap USB cables here and there for a thing they buy, but they use it for the thing they buy and not for random use on other devices. But if I were to play the devil's advocate, I would say Apple has had USB-C on their iPads and their Macs for quite a long time now, so it is more likely that Apple users would have USB-C if they have other Apple products. And in terms of Android users who just happen to like using AirPods, 100%, you've had USB-C forever. So yes, I will admit that it is highly likely people will have a spare USB-C cable sitting around to charge their new AirPods, but I hope you understand that it's not impossible that somebody who's been using Apple products that have relied on Lightning for all these years might not have a spare USB-C cable sitting around. With that being said, I still think that it would have been nice for a USB-C cable to be included in a $250 pair of headphones, but it's not. That's fine. Whew. Anyway, lack of cable aside, you can still charge these with MagSafe or with an Apple Watch charger, just like you could on the previous generation. And even with the lack of a cable, you do get some extras in the box, namely the new ear tips. And this could actually be a pretty big deal for people who just did not have the ear tip size that fit right with the AirPod Pros 2s. I personally know a few people where these just didn't quite go small enough on the Pro 2s, and the Pro 3s actually do. So that is really nice that they finally gave you some smaller ear tips, which makes sense because if you're going to redesign how they connect so that you can't use your old ear tips with the new ones like you could from the 1 to the 2s, at least you get more options. And yes, you heard me right. There was a redesign to the earbuds themselves thanks to tons of scans that Apple did with a bunch of different ears that means that you can't reuse your old ear tips with the new ones. But even though these new ear tips are specific to the Pro 3s and you can't use the Pro 2s on the Pro 3s, these new ear tips do have the benefit of being foam infused, which in my experience helps get Apple closer to that claimed 2x improvement on noise canceling over the second gen AirPod Pros and 4x improvement over the first generation. Now my testing for noise canceling isn't anything close to like our Tings, for example. My tests are pretty simple, but they work for me. The first test is one extreme, which is a completely silent room with no music playing, headphones in, active noise canceling on, and the air conditioning running. Because normally that AC sound, if there is no music playing through the headphones, gets through just a little bit. The other test is a lot more extreme. I'll play music at 50% volume and I will play the drums to the music that is playing to see how well these can cancel out that sound. For the AC test, where it was just a quiet room with no music and the AC running, The AirPod Pros 3s just made the AC sound vanish completely. And you're probably thinking, well, yeah, every noise canceling headphone would do that, but that's actually not quite right. Every time I've used noise canceling headphones, from Sony's to Bose to Beats to the AirPod Pros 2s and 1s, there's always just a little bit of a hiss. Just a little bit. You barely hear it, but it is still there. And with these, nothing. I didn't even know the AC was running until I felt the air from the AC vent hitting me. It was that efficient and that impressive. Not efficient, effective, that's the word. When it comes to the drumming test, before the Pro 3s, the Pro 1s were actually better because they would kind of let through a little bit at the beginning while they were freaking out and trying to figure out what to isolate and what not to, and then the system would just give up and rely on passive noise isolation, and that worked perfectly. The Pro 2s never quite gave up on letting sound through and trying to cancel certain sounds, but the sounds they would let through were these shrill, distorted interpretations of the hi-hat and the ride cymbal, and it was just not a pleasant experience. But I'm guessing because of the foam-infused ear tips on the Pro 3s, the passive isolation was fantastic, and whatever they're doing with the noise cancellation system, like the algorithm, these things did not let through anything shrill, anything sharp, and with the music turned on, it honestly felt like a perfect balance between the drums I was playing and the music I was playing too. It had not quite the same isolation effect as a proper set of in-ear monitors, but it was pretty close, and if I'm just sitting down to jam away and not record anything, these were really good, and they're probably gonna be my go-tos now for just practice. And they'll be able to keep that noise isolation up for 8 hours, which is kind of wild, because normally when you see headphones, they talk about the battery life with just everything turned off. They're just a set of headphones with music playing, and then as soon as you turn the noise isolation on, it just tanks the battery life. But yeah, 8 hours of battery life with noise isolation on. And then for a use case that I love and use very regularly, the hearing aid functionality will go up to 10 hours. I was able to wear these for a full work day, drive home, and start doing stuff here at the apartment, and it actually made me jump when it finally played the low battery notice. That is so nice. And even if the batteries on these do get low, you can throw them back in the charger for about 5 minutes and get an hour's worth of charging. But in my experience, when I did wear these long enough for the battery to get low and I put them in the charger, I really did not want to put them in again. Like, there's a limit to how long I'm okay with wearing headphones, and then there's a point where I just don't want anything in my ears. So there's really only a few extremes I can think of. And I think for most people, 10 hours is a lot. Hell, even 8 hours is a lot. So unless you're doing something like flying 13 hours to Taiwan with, oh, I'm doing that crap. Well, aside from those weird exceptions, I feel like the battery life of these headphones plus the battery life of the case will be perfectly fine for 99% of users. Although I do need to mention the case is technically a downgrade on battery life. The Pro 2s would get 30 hours of battery life and the Pro 3s have 24. It's a small difference on a big number, but it's still worth mentioning. But odds are, if you're like me, you're probably just gonna wait for this little light on the front, which is actually now hidden underneath the plastic, which is pretty cool. You're just gonna wait for that light to turn amber, and when it does, you're just gonna throw it on a charger, and well, green is good, amber means, well, you're running low. Now, aside from noise cancellation and battery improvements, a new feature to these headphones is the in-ear heart rate monitor, and these were actually seen on the Powerbeats headphones not too long ago, or I guess actually pretty long ago. When did these come out? Oh. Wow, okay. Well, anyway, they were tested over there and then they made their way to the AirPod Pros 3s, and I tried it out and basically just went on a general walk, did my normal exercise and fitness routine without having my Apple Watch on, and it just shows up in your fitness app on the phone as one of the inputs for a heart rate monitor. Now, if you do have your watch on and your headphones on, both of these show up as heart rate inputs. I'm not sure which one it pulls from or if it pulls from both of them, but that's just something worth noting. Something else worth noting, though, is that it's clear that Apple wants you to be able to do certain workouts with the headphones in, even if you don't have an Apple Watch, so that's always good. Pushing fitness, even if you don't buy more of Apple's products, is always going to be a plus for me. But it doesn't have any sort of notable goal. So, for example, when you have the Apple Watch, you have the 3 fitness rings, but you don't get those fitness rings with the Apple Watch. So even though I did my regular fitness routine using just these as the heart rate monitor and not wearing my Apple Watch, I didn't get any ring completion because that is specific to the Apple Watch. So if you're like me and you're a fitness rings addict, you're probably going to want to still use your Apple Watch when you do workouts, but if you happen to forget it or the battery dies, you'll at least still get a reasonably accurate readout of distance and heart rate. Now, another new feature for the AirPod Pros, not specifically the Pro 3s, because it also came to the Pro 2s, is the live translation function. And this basically works with Pro 2s or Pro 3s connected to an iPhone 15 Pro or newer running the Apple Intelligence functionality. The idea is that you can speak to somebody in your language, and when they speak to you, it will translate it into your ears. And if they have a pair of AirPods, it will actually send it through to their ears and back and forth, kind of like Babelfish, if anybody gets that reference. Or if you're speaking to somebody and they don't have a pair of AirPod Pros, but you do, you'll still hear their language in your ears, but it will actually present their language to them on your phone screen. Unfortunately though, during my test period with these, I was not able to test these before the review was written because I don't know anybody in my personal circle who speaks any of the currently supported languages. However, I do intend to do a dedicated video once they add Mandarin to this because my wife speaks Mandarin and we will actually be able to test it in real time. So make sure to subscribe for that so you don't miss it. And if you're liking the content so far, maybe leave a like. And also, when you're subscribed, you won't miss the iPhone 17 Pro review where I get to try out all 3 of the colors and see which one scratches first. I'm not going to actively try to scratch them, it just might happen apparently. Why is there always a gate with the iPhone? Anyway, so let's see, we've covered what was and wasn't in the box. We covered noise cancellation, battery life, the new in-ear heart rate monitors. We can't talk about translation yet because I haven't gotten a chance to use it, so what else is there? Oh, duh, the audio. You know, there's kind of a reason why during the writing of this, I kind of forgot to mention the audio in a pair of headphones, and it's because, in my opinion, it's a marginal improvement. I mean, it's definitely an appreciated improvement, and it's a pleasant one to people who might be more sensitive to that or have a trained ear, but it's not as massive of an improvement as it was going from the Pro 1s to the Pro 2s. The Pro 1s had what was a pretty flat equalizer that didn't really have a lot of bass on the low end, and it was upgraded to a bit more of a smile curve with a lot more emphasis on defining the bass frequencies. And for most people, when you kind of make a smile curve, meaning the highs and lows are more emphasized than the mids, and especially if you emphasize cleaning up and defining the bass, people are going to notice that right away because people tend to be more sensitive to bass and high frequencies, and the mids can be okay or even a little muddy, and unless you have a trained ear like I do, not this one's got hearing damage, but if you have a trained ear that is not hearing damaged, you might notice it more, but the average person won't. But from the Pro 2s to the Pro 3s, at least in my experience, it definitely seems like Apple just made the equalizer a bit more of a smile curve. More highs, the mids are still fine. The bass is higher, and I will say loses a little bit of that definition that the Pro 2s had, but for me, noticeable, yeah. Bad, I don't really think so. For LTT, apparently, oh God, it must have been the end of the world.
They sound like shit. Why?
If you ask me, I think that the average user is still going to like this sound profile. If I wanted to listen to a completely flat equalizer, I'm gonna go grab my pair of in-ear monitors, or I'm gonna go grab some high impedance cans, throw them on, and just sit back and listen. But if I'm throwing on music and I'm walking or I'm going on a run, I'm in the gym, or even just at the moment packing my apartment and I want music in the background, the more enjoyable sound signature of a smile equalizer is what I would be looking for because it's fun. It makes the music feel a little more punchy. It just helps it stand out from the background. And this is coming from somebody who used to work as a session drummer. A smile curve in a pair of convenience headphones is fine. Honestly, the flatter equalizer that they used to have on the Pro 1s for day-to-day use was boring. The Pro 2s gave you a bit of that curve and brought back some of the punchiness, and that was fun. And Apple just kind of did that on these as well. Not quite as revolutionary or great as what they showed off in the keynote, but still fine. But here's the thing, despite what Apple said during the keynote about these massive audio improvements to the AirPod Pros 3s, the audio quality is not the reason people are going to be upgrading. It might have been the reason they upgraded from the Pro 1s to the Pro 2s, because that was a notable difference, but it's not the reason to upgrade to the Pro 3s. In my opinion, people buying the AirPod Pros 3s are buying them for one of two reasons. The first reason is because they just want to buy the latest and greatest pair of AirPods, which, I mean, those people exist, so, I mean, do I have to say anything else? That's reason number one. Reason number two is because they're rocking a pair of AirPod Pros 1s or Pro 2s that still have Lightning that they bought about 4 years ago. The battery's shot, they're starting to have issues with the ear tips, they're dirty, whatever the case may be, and they just want to get a new pair of AirPods and they don't want to go with the same thing they had before. And for those people, I think that these would definitely make sense and they would feel like a marked improvement. I had that exact same situation. My previous AirPod Pros barely lasted me 2 hours into my flight to Taiwan, and then I had to pull out a Lightning cable because literally everything else I use is charged over USB-C. So I definitely wanted to get a pair that were USB-C capable and had better battery life. So that's reason number two. But if you don't fall into either of those categories and you just want a good deal on a good pair of noise cancellation headphones, the Pro 3s are definitely an option, but you know the Pro 2s are gonna start going on sale, and I don't know if Apple's still making them or if it's while supplies last, but considering the Pro 2s are getting the live translation function and the newer cases have USB-C, if you're all right with 6 hours of battery life instead of 8, these might be good. Just don't upgrade, or go backwards rather, to the Pro 1s. Either way, that's been it. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you all think about the new Pro 3s. Are you rocking a pair of AirPod Pros at all? Pro 1s, Pro 2s, you getting the Pro 3s? Let me know all that down in the comments. Cheapest way to support the channel is, of course, to leave a comment. But if you are one of these people over in the corner, it means that you pay $3 a month to be a member of the channel. Thank you so much to the members of the channel as well. That is a big deal. It really keeps the channel afloat for any videos I make that don't do well. And I'm also adding another perk alongside everything else that's on there, which is that you're gonna be getting wallpapers once I can get some of them collected and uploaded. So keep an eye out for that if you are a member, and if you're not, maybe take a look. Some pretty cool stuff over there. Either way, if you enjoy this content, definitely make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the future stuff, like, again, my future review coming up of the iPhone 17 Pro and Pro Max. And aside from that, thank you all so much for being here, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Make sure to be there, and have a good one.